Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is Best of Redditor Updates, where OP tries to convince his wife that he has a long-lost son that he didn't know about. Our next Reddit post comes from Direct Caterpillar 77, titled, Need a Fake Kid to Piss Off My Wife. So, my wife and I are watching Elf together, and we saw the part where Buddy's real dad, James, tells his wife about Buddy, and his wife, Mary, gets excited about this surprise adult that pops into their life from a time before they knew each other. I point out to my wife that it's a little unbelievable that she, Mary, would immediately be on board. I then commented that she, my wife, would actually be mad at me in this situation, even if I genuinely did not know this kid existed and that it was conceived before I met her. Of course, she denies it, but I know my wife. For context, we're in our mid-40s. And have been married for about 10 years, been together for about 12. So I need a 20-ish-year-old kid to knock on the door and tell me that they're my kid and that they just wanted to meet me. It's got to be convincing though. They have to really talk the talk about how your mom and I were once really happy before she died of something tragic. Dealer's choice, of course. Job pays $100. Gender, race, etc. don't really matter so long as you can pass for early 20s. It shouldn't take more than an hour of conversation, then you get a call or something and have to leave. Want to do this soon after the new year though. You have to come up with a backstory and I'll play along. I'll give you a little info up front after you take the job. Then a few days later, OP posts a quick edit. Holy cow, I have so many interested potential fake offspring. I am no longer taking applications. I did not expect to get so many willing people. I'll post the winning candidate in the coming days. The next edit, it not only looks like I have a potential fake kid, but that this fake kid could probably actually passes me genetically. I'll post an update after the first week of January, hopefully not from a shelter. Then, 2 weeks later, OP posts an update. So, to the very dramatic naysayers, one of which compared my prank to spousal abuse and several who diagnosed me with a number of mental illnesses, and at least as many said that I was childish and cruel. To you, I say, yeah, you're probably right. However, nah, boo-hoo, you can stick your head in doo-doo. We've been married a decade. We know each other very well, and very well enough to know what's over the line and what's funny. Now, as far as the candidates went, unfortunately, interested and committed are two very different things. Multiple potential sons and daughters made it to the planning stage. However, most found one reason or another to bail out. Let me be very clear though. I really don't blame these folks at all. I don't think I'd have the courage to send the first DM, let alone actually go through with the prank orchestrated by a complete stranger. But I did find a suitable actor with the courage to come through and still think that it was money well spent. So, here's a synopsis of how it played out. No, unfortunately, there's no video. Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. My dog lost his mind, as he usually does, and my wife answered the door since I had to pretend to take a phone call moments earlier. My son, looking about 20 to 25, taller and better looking than I, asked if I was home. My wife motioned to me, and I had conveniently just ended my fake phone call, so I came to the door. My quote, son, who even shared my first name, his idea, not mine, said he had something kind of strange to talk to me about. I asked if he wanted to come in, which literally almost blew this whole thing, because I would sooner rather saw off my own foot than invite people into my house. But luckily, my wife didn't think much of it. We came to the living room and I offered a drink, but he declined. My son is an excellent actor, by the way. He would later say it was the anxiety of the situation and not wanting to mess up that made his, quote, nervous demeanor so convincing. This is from memory, but it's pretty much everything. I'll let my, quote, son chime in with the details should he feel like outing himself. My son, do you remember the, quote, old ex-girlfriend I mentioned at least once in my 10 years of marriage in front of my wife? My wife, yeah. Son, well, that's my mother. It was my wife who reacted first by saying, oh, no way. So I looked at her, trying to feign ignorance, and then back at my son and said, is she okay? He said, "Yeah, she's fine. That's not why I'm here." My wife was nearly busting out of her chair, totally engrossed and completely consumed with two theories. One, that her husband had a long lost son, and more importantly, two, her husband hasn't figured out yet that he has a long lost son. So I say, "Out with the kid. What's going on?" He says, "Well, I'm 22 years old." My wife's eyes are essentially bugged out of her head. Having now confirmed her theories in her mind, she looks at me, seemingly annoyed that I hadn't put these obvious puzzle pieces together, and interrupts my fake kid. Nearly laughed, but I tried to hold it together. She said, "I think he's trying to tell you that he thinks you're his father." Now, my acting is not so great, but I gave it a shot and said, "Wait, what?" My look of shock could use some work, but it played for the audience. My son looked at me and said, "She's right. I'm not here to ask for anything. In fact, I actually don't have a lot of time to stay, but I just wanted to meet you and maybe exchange numbers." Then I say, "This is a lot to take in. I knew your mother a long time ago, and she never said, I didn't know." I'm paraphrasing, but this kid deserves an Oscar, really. He said, "She never told you?" "She only told me on Christmas morning. She didn't say anything bad about you, just that it was over, and she was already dating my dad when she found out that she was pregnant with me." Then I said, "Wait, does your dad know?" "Of course. I've always known that he wasn't my biological father. He's a great dad, but I've lately been wondering who my real father was. So I asked my mom, and she told me." All I could say was wow. Now, I freely admit I had the easy part in this. My wife wasn't saying anything. She just sat there, trying to take it all in. Not much else happened in the terms of this production. We exchanged numbers, then he got his own fake phone call reminding him that he was late for something, and I walked him out. The rest of the production was just my wife and I. I came back to the living room doing my best bewildered act. We talked about it and covered things like paternity tests, and as it turns out, I was way wrong. My wife wasn't even mad, miffed, or even slightly annoyed. She was full on amazed, excited, and entertained by this entire thing. I waited a few hours before I fessed up, but before I did, she kept saying how cool it was that I might have a son. And then when I told her that it was all a BS lie that I made up to prove a point, she laughed. She laughed a lot. I can't even decide what amazed her more, the effort that I put into this ruse, or the fact that I ended up proving her right in the process. Here are a couple of gems from my wife after I told her the truth. She said, "Where the hell did you find that guy?" She said, "I'm glad your son wasn't a serial killer at least. I might have been mad if he came here looking for money. Next time, you can save $100 and just assume you're wrong. Also, you know I'm going to get you back, right?" That last one has me a little bit worried. OP, you and your wife seem like you have a very special relationship and understand each other very well. I think my wife would have lost her mind if she realized that I had a kid that I had no idea about. Even if I didn't know about it, I think she would have flipped. Definitely would not have reacted as well as yours, OP. But it's good you guys share a very similar sense of humor. I can see this going very, very south for a lot of other people I know. Our next Reddit post comes from OKExternal2945, titled, "A payroll glitch allowed me to be vastly overpaid for months. This happened years ago, and I've never told anyone. I think it's been long enough that they can't ask for the money back, but I still get nervous." For context, I was making about $26 an hour. During our shift, we would clock in and out of jobs as we started and completed them. Each job was for a different company. I worked at a fabrication shop. Certain jobs had tasks that would pay close to $70 an hour. The company was pretty stingy on handing those tasks out though, but I would average 5 to 10 hours of my 40-hour work week making $70 an hour. One day, they had their tech guy come in and change some things with the computers where we would clock in and clock out of our daily jobs. Nothing on my end changed. Clock in and clocking out of the jobs was the same per usual. However, I noticed that my next paycheck was significantly higher and had about 20 hours of $70 an hour work. I figured I didn't realize some of the tasks I was doing were at $70 an hour, and I felt pretty lucky. Next week, I had about 25 hours at $70 an hour. I felt lucky again, but suspected that something was off. The third week, I mentally tracked all the tasks I did that were considered $70 an hour work and was about at 10 hours for that week. But nope, 22 hours of $70 an hour work hit my check. I definitely knew something was off at this point, but I kept my mouth shut. Another guy mentioned something about his paycheck being bigger, and we silently agreed that it was better not to say anything. This went on for months. At a certain point, the office people asked a couple of questions about how we were clocking into jobs, but didn't ever say anything about our hours. IT was at our computers a couple of times during this time frame, and after about 4 to 5 months, they must have fixed the error. I'm not sure how much extra money I ended up with, but I know it was a lot more than I should have. I kept all the extra in savings in case they came back and said they had overpaid me and needed the money back. COVID hit, jobs slowed really bad, and they laid off most of our department. I ended up getting a job with another shop when work picked back up. Do I feel guilty? Not really. This company was super shady in a lot of ways and never treated their employees well. Should I have said something? Maybe. OP, so just doing a little bit of quick math, if you were overpaid for $70 an hour of work by, let's say, 15 hours a week, 15 times 4 times, let's say, about 6 months, let's say, if that took them 6 long to notice the issue and fix it, before taxes, that's an extra $20,160. For a lot of people, that's kind of like a life-changing amount of money to pay off debts, make a down payment on like a car or fix their car, a down payment on a house or something. I really can't blame you for not saying anything, OP. Yes, the honest thing would have been to say something. However, I do understand that a lot of these corporate companies will screw you at every left, right turn for their own benefit and never give any regard to you, your family, or your well-being. So I really can't blame you for doing a similar thing in return to them. Plus, it's not like you were actively doing anything wrong anyway. They were the ones overpaying you. They were the ones depositing the money into your account. You weren't doing anything shady. You didn't do anything outside of your norm. They should have noticed that a lot sooner. Our next Reddit post comes from Heather and 2004, titled, "Found out I was a major part of my grandma's will and was supposed to get my part at 25 and 30, but I'm 38 and have received nothing." For context, her will was done in Washington. I knew I was in my grandma's will, but didn't know to what capacity, so I had to contact the county that the will was done in to get a copy. I received the will in the mail this week and was shocked to find out how big of a part I had in this will, but didn't start until I was age 22. The assets were supposed to be split into 3 when I was 22. My 2 uncles were supposed to get a third of each, and the rest was supposed to be saved for me. When I was 25, I was to get half of what was left, and when I was 30, I was supposed to get the rest of it, and the trust was to be terminated at that time. However, the estate was closed in 2005 when I was only 19. I got 0 notification and actually no notification of anything about this. Of course, the original lawyer that handled all of this works at a firm in Washington now. The lawyer that he passed all the files to also passed away in 2018. To say this has been an adventure is quite an understatement. I ended up getting in touch with the bar association with that county, and they gave me the name of someone, but I'm still waiting to hear back on if it's a conflict of interest or not. I've spoken to 83857 law offices this week, it seems like. I've reached out to the executor of the estate, which is one of the uncles that was supposed to get 1/3 of the real estate, and I've gotten complete radio silence so far. Then about 8 months later, OP posts an update. I guess it's time to update this. I wish there was a better update, but essentially, my uncle won. I get and I got nothing. I finally found a lawyer that was willing to take on my case, and we started with a letter that essentially told him that we know about the will and we demand accounting. He responded by letting her know that he received the letter, and since he was on a Mormon mission, he doesn't have access to it at the moment. My lawyer then received a phone call from a lawyer in the Tri-Cities, Washington area, and was speaking on behalf of him, but this person was strangely not his lawyer. My lawyer told me that the amount that I would have gotten was used to raise me. For context, my grandma died when I was 12. My dad had a trust though, and they were given a good amount of money every single month as child support to raise me, so I'm pretty sure that was a lie. But they said that there was nothing left of the trust. My lawyer was also told by my uncle that he doesn't want any strife in the family. You wouldn't have had any strife in the family if you would have just paid me like you were supposed to. My uncle never formally responded either, so there's nothing that can really be done. If anyone has some other ideas, I'd be willing to listen, but there's not much I can do at this point. OP, I have a lot of questions here, and I'm not trying to make it seem like maybe you're not being 100% truthful, but maybe you're just not getting the advice that you really need. There's a lot that you can do here. Hire a process server to go serve him wherever he's on his Mormon mission at. If he can be served, he has to show up to court. And trust me, if you're willing to pay enough, you can serve anyone with lawsuit paperwork. If you were supposed to be given money and he violated that, you absolutely have a ton of rights and can sue him personally for all of the money that you should have gotten, plus interest that the money would have made if you would have gotten the money. There's a lot you can do, and I'm not really sure why you're just giving up so blatantly. Unless there was some information that you found out that you just don't want to say because maybe you're embarrassed. I don't know. But you have a lot of options here. I hope one day there's some type of update to this post because, yeah, there's definitely got to be more to this. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/bestofredditorupdates. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe as we put out new Reddit videos almost every single day, and leave a comment on any subreddits you'd like to hear from next.